So, should we do our affirmations, gentlemen?
Affirmations?
What?
Which is your favourite nation?
Pakistan, of course.
Well, close. But,
Equatorial Guinea.
well, mine is Israel.
Mhm.
And I would like to let everybody know, as this segment begins, that I love the nation of Israel. I would never do anything against it. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about...
Where's this going?
let's talk about how Elon Musk has gotten in a lot of trouble over the past week or so. I don't know if we've reported on this quite yet, but Elon Musk has decided that, as you so eloquently put before this, that Elon has decided to strip naked and run through a minefield, metaphorically speaking. And metaphorically speaking, I've decided to throw my clothes asunder and follow straight ahead right behind him.
And drag us along with you.
And drag us along. Obviously, with this segment, I'm going to be sensitive to the subject because there's a lot of nuance that we can take here. Before I get into it, given that censorship is something on everybody's mind all of the time, and Elon was the great savior of Twitter, trying to remove as much censorship from it as possible and allow it to be a free speech platform, I think it would be relevant to point everyone to a recent video that came out on Friday, where I was speaking to Chloe of Proper Horror Show, a show that Josh and I have been on in the past. She's very knowledgeable on films and horror in particular, as you'd imagine. But this was us talking about the history of British censorship in television and film, looking at the BBFC and Ofcom and other organisations. I thought it was a really interesting discussion, and it was very interesting because it wasn't just about the history of British censorship. It also had some great lessons in there to learn about power dynamics between political groups.
I'm definitely going to watch this one myself. Yeah.
So,
hi folks, we've rolled out a new feature on the website, which is the ability to pay for an individual piece of content. So usually it's £5 a month every month to subscribe to all of the content on the website. But I appreciate there are going to be people who simply don't want to do that. They would be interested instead in purchasing a single piece of content for a lower amount, and they've got a particular niche that they're interested in watching. And so they don't want every single piece of content. They just want this one thing. So we've introduced this function where you can just simply purchase the one thing for £1.89, which I think is about $2.30 at the current exchange rates. And then that's just yours forever. So there's no sort of commitment there. There's no rolling subscription. It's just that one thing. So that's an option now that's on the website. It's completely live. It's completely available. And please go and enjoy it. And we'll see you all very soon.
if you want to get a membership on the website, you can get it for as little as £5 per month, and you'll get access to that video and all the other ones. And we are still on our 3rd birthday right now. So if you go and use code BIRTHDAY when you're signing up, then you can get 33% off of your first 3 months of your subscription. So that's a really great deal. You should take advantage of it while it's still there. So let's go into the details of what was happening. So this is the tweet that started it all off. So for some context of this, some gentleman shared this video, which was produced by I think it's the Council Against Anti-Semitism, which was a classic where a gentleman takes his son outside of a mosque, not a mosque, that would be ironic.
The other one. Yeah.
Outside of a synagogue, and says, I can't believe you've been saying things online like a particular mustached man from the mid-century was right. Why don't you say it to their faces? You know, typical sort of videos that they put out from this, which is hilarious given that ADL, I think, reported that there has been a 400% increase in anti-Semitism in the last year. Nothing specifying who exactly was performing that anti-Semitism.
Mysteriously, when it's time to pray to Mecca, the spike in anti-Semitism suddenly drops. It's just a weird coincidence.
Very strange. It's obviously young white boys who have committed all of that 400%. This person says, you got something you want to say? Why don't you say it to our faces? This gentleman puts out a rather spicy statement saying that particular Jewish, well, he doesn't say particularly, he says Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. A very contentious claim to put out there. Elon Musk responds by saying, you have said the actual truth. And this got everybody talking.
That is
nobody was expecting Elon to come out again with this kind of statement, especially recently when he's been trying so hard to talk about to solve anti-Semitism on the platform, and he's been trying to navigate the absolute landmines that the ADL and other organizations keep placing in front of him. I think he had to go through with some kind of anti-Semitism struggle session a while back. I think this was actually in the months after he purchased Twitter, the ADL put him through a struggle session that included people like Ben Shapiro and others.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very strange that he has to go through all of this. Then he decided to clarify his points and say that the ADL, because obviously that's the one that he's got the most experience with recently, unjustly attacks the majority of the West, despite the majority of the West supporting the Jewish people and Israel. This is because they cannot, by their own tenets, criticize the minority groups who are their primary threat. It's not right and it needs to stop. And then he clarifies further when somebody says the ADL are not the whole of the Jewish community, which is absolutely true. And he says, this does not extend to all Jewish communities, but it's also not just limited to the ADL. And he is right when he talks about this. There are quite a few explicitly Jewish community, well, not communities, organizations that do try to encourage multicultural ideology, refugees in the West being brought over here, and anti-white rhetoric, you could say. These are not at all representative of all Jewish communities. For instance, these guys who represent what they call Torah Judaism put out a statement after the events of the weekend saying that they completely support Elon Musk and everything that he does, because these guys are anti-Zionist Jews, because of course not all Jews are Zionists. There's quite a few in the Orthodox communities who are completely anti-Zionist, and they say that it's only because of Elon Musk that they were allowed back on the platform. It's all very interesting, but you do have to acknowledge at some point the reality that you do have organizations like the ADL, which we've covered before, which have an absolutely oversized amount of power, not just in America, but across all of world politics, where they were encouraging, where they were trying to pressure, for instance, Iceland to not ban male circumcision. Then you've got things like the American Jewish Committee funded the Studies in Prejudice series that was the Frankfurt School, where they released books like The Authoritarian Personality, which basically tried to pathologize any and all right-wing
It also
thought.
has no evidentiary basis in the psychological literature, and in fact, it distracted research in the realm of political psychology from looking at the notion of authoritarianism more seriously, because they got waylaid with this concept. And I think it was a massive mistake.
Well, having read an analysis of it recently, it's very interesting. The empirical interviews that they conducted seem to point all of the evidence in one way, which is traditional Western structured families are very positive and very good for people. And they free associated, Freudian psychoanalyzed all of the material to point in the opposite direction. This woman says that she had an excellent relationship with her father that's led to her being much stronger later on in life and have a great connection with her history and culture. What we've actually decided through psychoanalysis BS is that this actually means that she's horribly repressed and hates her father secretly and can't accept it. Whereas the evidence for this, I made it up.
It is effectively the psychological equivalent of reading tea leaves, isn't it? It's nonsense.
It really is. Then you've got organizations like George Soros Open Society. There's people like Susan Rosenberg, who is a member of the all-female terrorist organization May 19th Communist Group, who tried to bomb the American Capitol in 1983, was imprisoned, and then released by Bill Clinton on his last day in office, she might still be, vice chair of an organization called Thousand Currents.
Wasn't she pardoned by him as well?
I think she was pardoned.
So she
by him, yeah.
wanted to bomb a government building, and she was pardoned by a Democratic president. It's worth remembering January 6th and
yes.
the complete absence of explosives.
You have interviewed not members, but people who were involved in January 6th as well.
People who've been arrested, yeah.
You should definitely check out those videos on the website. But she's the vice chair of Thousand Currents, who donated about $3.3 million to BLM during the 2019-2020 period and helped them to set up a lot of their charity funding. So there are individuals and organizations which exemplify exactly what Elon Musk is talking about. And it's not anti-Semitic to point this out as much as it would be for me to be claimed to be labeled as anti-English for criticizing Hope Not Hate and the Socialist Workers' Party of the UK, or even anti-Italian for criticizing Dr. Fauci. You don't have to tiptoe around these subjects just because there's massive organizations that want to label you if you criticize them, because we shouldn't give these people a right to claim dominance and control over the entire narrative of the community that they say that they represent. Because the ADL, George Soros, all of these organizations, they represent factions in the same way that British people have factions. You've got right-wing conservative British people, and you've got leftist, liberal, open borders British people. So you can't give them a complete monopoly over the views and beliefs of Jewish
just
people.
Making generalizations about human beings when it comes to politics when it's a specific group of people, it just tends to be really inaccurate, no matter what the area is and what the group of people
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you consider there are right-wing Jewish organizations that care about Western values and don't want open borders, don't want refugees coming over. And some people like, Murray Rothbard and Paul Gottfried are I consider some of the most incisive right-wing commenters and philosophers of the past 100 years or so.
I imagine Curtis Yarvin doesn't agree with the ADL, for example.
No, although he has been making arguments in favor of complete Palestinian genocide recently on his Substack.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but he's been approaching it from a political realism perspective, not necessarily a tribal perspective, although I'm sure some would make arguments. Either way, like I say, there are people who've come out in favor of Elon Musk, but the White House and other organizations immediately decide to say that you're an evil, hideous anti-Semite for even acknowledging any of these facts. These are facts that you can easily find just by looking things up on Google, but you're an anti-Semite for pointing it out. They said, we condemn this abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitic and racist hate in the strongest terms. This was spokesperson Andrew Bates. He said, it's unacceptable to repeat the hideous lie behind the most fatal act of anti-Semitism in American history at any time, let alone 1 month after the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. On Wednesday...
What lie?
That's the good question, isn't it? What lie? They don't have an answer for that.
What event, even, in American history since the Holocaust? What is he talking about?
They're talking about the Hamas attack on the 7th of October, but that's not
What's that got to do with this conversation?
Not an American event, is it?
No, but what's that even got to do with the conversation? That's the thing that is so transparent about this event that I love, which is that you can clearly see there are a lot of groups that wanted to take down Elon anyway. And then there are some more which are now stumbled across this, want to use it as a weapon to fight him, and it's gone through the WhatsApp chats saying, this is the one we can use, all the way to the White House. It is so utterly transparent in the way power actually works, which is, we've got one, boys, and all the way to the White House.
I mean, thought that exact same thing, yeah.
I'm sure you're going to go to it as well. What is it? Apple, IBM,
yep.
all these major organizations.
Apple, Disney, Comcast, Warner Bros., Paramount Global, and the Lionsgate Entertainment have all decided as a result of this, they are going to be pulling out of advertisement for Twitter.
Because they deeply care about the issue of whether or not certain Jewish communities, like the ADL, promote anti-white viewpoints. No, couldn't give a crap. It is just about destroying Elon and the safe space he's made that is Twitter.
Especially Disney. I mean, if they cared so much, they'd change their name, because Walt Disney, of course, not famous for being friendly.
Well, I mean, the thing is, ADL chief executive Jonathan Greenblatt, of course, he decided to get to take a step in this because
the man Elon Musk hates Elon Musk.
No way.
I mean, let's be perfectly honest. He's probably been somebody who has sent this information to those organizations like Disney and Comcast and said, "You've got him now, boys." ADL is a big nexus point for all of this kind of activity. I only just found out today. The Nation posted an article on Friday that I might have to cover later on this week because it is really, really interesting, showing that organizations like Israel on College Campus works directly with the ADL and the Israel government to spy on American campuses so they can create their hate reports about anti-Semitism on campuses. And that can range from anything from white kids who are pro-Palestine saying like, oh, maybe we shouldn't, completely kill all of the Palestinians and support that financially through our tax money, to actual anti-Semites, or people just saying, I'm not that fond of Israel. I don't see why we have to have our business wrapped up in them. They actively have spy networks using geolocation, tracking information through Facebook and other social media sites.
I've not heard about that.
I only just heard about it earlier today from this excellent article that came out. I might have to cover it later on this week, as I said. But the ADL actively works with organizations that spy on American citizens for the benefit of a foreign state. And these are the guys that American businesses like Disney go, like, I trust this guy. This guy right here who's spying on our citizens, this is my man. This is the guy for me.
Well, to be fair, Disney would like that information as well. They love collecting data.
Well, yeah, it's
not that though, is it? It's a fear of the influence backlash. Mm-hmm. So they've been told Elon Musk's done something anti-Semitic, you need to cut your advertising. And they've got two options. They can either keep going and say, go screw yourself, ADL, or they can just comply. And what happens if they just comply? Well, they don't have to spend the money. They might lose some money in advertising. Who really gives a crap? But if they continued, then they would be labeled anti-Semitic, and the various influence groups around the United States political system would then try and utterly destroy them as well. It's a fear racket.
Or not even necessarily destroy the corporations, because a corporation like Disney is really useful for the American government to be able to work directly with. So they would just get you, personally, the man who made that decision, everybody who supported you.
Why did you do it, Callum?
They'd get you fired.
Yeah.
And then they'd put in somebody else who is more amenable to their positions and ideas. But it just goes to show how vast the network is of basically leftist activism that goes on to enforce a left-wing global hegemony.
None of it based on truth, all of it based on fear.
Yeah.
I noticed
sorry, let me finish this.
No, go ahead.
The European Commission has asked its departments to stop buying ads on X because of concerns over misinformation related to the Israel-Hamas war as well. And
if you don't, we'll come for you.
Yeah, there you go. What were you going to say, Josh?
I was just going to say that lots and lots of political networks operate in a similar sort of structure. I remember looking at the MAPS network of all of these different pressure groups that are all linked together with certain individuals who have foot in multiple groups, and they sort of form a web or a network where information travels through them, and they can help with activism and helping one another. And of course, when it comes to pro-paedophile organizations, it's pretty clear that everyone's pretty much against them, or at least you should be. But it's interesting that this seems to be a very effective way of organizing in politics more generally, doesn't it?
And sadly, the left have become experts at it. I imagine that there are plenty of groups on the right that operate in a similar way. I would imagine that somebody like Chris Rufo probably has networks set up in a similar way, because he's been able to successfully pressure parts of Florida and educational departments across to the US. But the left in particular seem to really know how to operate it, because they were working clandestinely for such a long time. I mean, all you have to do is go back to the early Bolsheviks and see that they were operating in an equivalent way for the time period that they were operating in. It was a load of criminals operating behind the scenes, trying to influence politics or force the hand of the government.
Not a lot's changed then.
No, it really hasn't. But in response to this, Elon Musk has stated that he's going to fire off lawsuits. He threatened the same thing with the ADL a few months ago, and he hasn't, which is a shame, because I would love to see somebody with the financial capital to be able to back this up, just go straight for the throat with an organization like ADL, which has been such a force of censorship.
I think it takes a long time to get put together a lawsuit of that size.
It does, but I really hope that he can go ahead with it, because he's probably the only person who could, because of all the money he's got behind him. He also threatened to sue media watchdog Media Matters, because they're the ones who have been putting together these reports and informational reports saying that, you who advertise on Twitter, your advertisement was put on a post that was praising Mustache Man or something like that, and trying to pressure these groups to take themselves off of the platform. So Musk has written on Twitter, he said, the split-second court opens on Monday. X Corp will be filing a thermonuclear lawsuit against Media Matters and all those who colluded in the fraudulent attack on our company. This week, Media Matters for America posted a story that completely misrepresented the real experience on X in another attempt to undermine freedom of speech and mislead advertisers. He accused Media Matters of creating an alternative account designed to misinform advertisers about their posts. Following the outbreak of war between Israel and Palestine, Islamist group Hamas, which attacked Israel on October 7th, anti-Semitic incidents in the United States rose by nearly 400% from the year earlier period, according to the ADL. So
that's where that, because they rose something like 1,400% in the UK. What's the difference in certain populations?
Again, the ADL, they love to make these reports, but they're never particularly specific, are they? They don't like to point out who exactly is committing it, because if they do that, then they might have to narrow down their focus and criticize particular groups, whereas they want a nice broad net so that they can marginalize as many groups as possible, so they can maintain influence and funding and probably pressure people into giving them money.
But the thing is, there are 1.8 billion Muslims in the world. They're not really a minority. And in fact, many of them are pretty explicit that they want to take over, say, Europe or North America and make everyone Islamic.
But off of the back of this, you've had lots of political reactions to it. DeSantis actually has been refusing to condemn Elon Musk, which is quite honorable of him, because this guy, Jake Tapper on CNN, was trying to maneuver him into you got to condemn him. You've got to condemn him. He was trying to maneuver him into a condemnation. DeSantis refused. He said, no, I know.
What do you want?
We might have to bleep that on YouTube.
Hold on.
Yep.
But that's the correct response. No, someone asked you that. So
it absolutely
no, I'm right wing. Go to hell.
If he said that verbatim, I reckon his polling would go up in the Republican race.
Yeah, it still wouldn't get him above Trump, but it would it'd give him a little kick up there. Culture critics shared that Elon Musk. There's been a bit of a battle going on Wikipedia where they've been listing him as
front line of our civilization. Wikipedia.
Always. Well, once again, if it's the first result that pops up on Google when you search someone's name and it comes up in the information tab that shows up on the side, you know that people are going to be battling over those first few sentences. What's the first impression people are going to get of you? They've been trying to label as a conspiracy theorist. This got edited out and changed to far-right conspiracy theorist. But at the moment, it's been taken down. So the first few sentences, if we go to the top here, no longer say conspiracy theorist. But they have included this nice bit here where they say the Israel government and several media outlets accuse Musk of anti-Semitism due to him spreading George Soros conspiracy theories, although some Israeli officials defended Musk. In his tweet on November 2023, he supported white nationalist ideology.
I must have missed something there. I didn't see that.
I know. And affirmed another anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that Jews pushed hatred against whites. No, not all Jews, but...
He literally clarified and said the ADL.
Yeah, he said the ADL and some other organizations. And while he may not have named those organizations explicitly, we know which ones they are. I listed a few of them to start off.
I mean, they even write afterwards that he did clarify. I mean, this is just a general problem with Wikipedia, isn't it?
Yes, this is absolutely the general problem. But because all of these large organizations that have been helping to advertise on Twitter, because of course he's had the ad revenue sharing scheme that's been going on for a few months now, Twitter is very dependent on advertisers. And without those advertisers, people have been throwing in their hats and saying, hey, I'll help, I'll advertise on the platform instead. A lot of people are saying, Seth Dillon says, from the Babylon Bee, I'll put in 250 grand to advertise on the platform. Tim Pool has said that he'll put in 250 grand to advertise on the platform. Quartering said 25 grand to advertise on the platform. And then Andrew Tate said he would put in $1 million a month to advertise.
$1 million.
You've got to really love how Andrew Tate does this, because you know how Andrew Tate, whenever he gets involved in anything, he has to suddenly become the best central part of any story. He is clarified with, you don't need other advertisers. You don't need them. Just me.
Every fucking advert is just Andrew Tate.
I already see, just by following him, I see him with his shirt off too much. I don't want to see that even more.
What would he be advertising? I know he's recently
his own abs, probably.
Well, he started some university where you'll be able to get a proper education from Andrew Tate. But imagine if it is just him advertising himself shirtless. There's no product he's selling.
I am the product.
Yeah, literally, that's the tagline.
Yeah. But the interesting thing with this is, even with Twitter potentially being in trouble without the advertisers, Elon Musk himself, I think, can probably afford to keep the platform going purely by himself. Because one thing that none of these articles are mentioning is that Elon Musk is massively backed by the American government. Despite them condemning him, they are too heavily involved with Elon Musk to be able to pull out all of their financial support that they have of him. Because let's list a few of the things. Oh,
it involved or reliant on him?
They are completely reliant on him.
Because I've seen there's this graph that's fantastic, which is the American economy with and without Elon Musk's input. Like, if you just take Elon Musk's economic output out of the American GDP, China's already overtaken them.
Well,
literally, he's the only guy keeping it afloat.
Even without things like Tesla, there are so many government contracts with so many different departments that are entirely dependent on him. I'll list a few of them that they go through in this New York Times article. In recent weeks, the US government has become more dependent on him than ever, agreeing to as much as a $1.2 billion worth of SpaceX launches next year to put crucial Pentagon assets including spy and command and control satellites, into space. And there's lots of other contracts going on with the military and other things where they, ever since the invasion of Ukraine, the military dependency on Mr. Musk has only increased. It was his decision to ship Starlink satellite equipment to Ukraine in the hours after the invasion to keep the country able to communicate. When he declined a Ukrainian request to extend the coverage of the system to Crimea, the Ukrainians found that they could not precisely aim drones on a mission to attack Russian ships. So even the Ukrainian defense has been very reliant on the capital that Elon Musk has put forward. Elon Musk is not just the US government isn't just dependent on Musk. Ukraine's defense has been reliant on Elon Musk.
You've got like Starlink PMC over here that actually determines if your operation goes well or doesn't exist in a modern warfare context.
Well, they point out the American government would really, really love to be able to rely on their normal contractors like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, but they just cannot keep up with all of Elon Musk's innovations in all of these areas. They're at least 5 years behind everything that Elon Musk is able to produce.
It's going to bring joy to my heart that the first base on Mars is going to be private and not run by a government. Oh,
well, it'll be both subsidized by the government, technically private, but private-public partnership is what it's going to be. Yeah. So I'm very sorry to break that to you. But also NASA is working with him in separate contracts, collectively worth at least $4 billion to land 2 sets of its astronauts on the moon with SpaceX's new Starship rocket, bringing humans back to the lunar surface for the first time in more than 50 years. So the American government is completely dependent on Elon Musk. The American economy is completely dependent on Elon Musk. Ukraine's ability to fire rockets and make them go where they want them to go is entirely dependent on Elon Musk. So with all of these condemnations, with all of the controversy around him, he is so much a part of the furniture that they need him. And he's too big to fail. So whether or not he goes out and starts endorsing far-right conspiracy theories, they can't do anything against him realistically.
There's something more revealing there, which is they're willing to destroy that economic lead. They're willing to destroy the technological lead and the ability to win modern wars just to make sure no one's quote-unquote anti-Semitic, which in this case was just him saying the ADL are bad. That's how much of value.
We've got plenty of evidence of that.
What's more valuable? This guy who has created like $1 trillion worth of wealth, or the ADL? I mean, which one would you throw under the bus if you were the American government? Apparently, Elon Musk.
Well, as somebody who loves the nation of Israel and considers himself not anti-Semitic, Callum, I'm going to have to throw myself in with the ADL there.
Okay.
Thanks for watching that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did and want to find more of what we do, you can subscribe to our website for as little as £5 per month to find all of the video series we've got on there, including Dan's Brokenomics series, the most recent episode of which he's talking with Dr. Ahmed Malik about the current state of the NHS. When signing up, if you use Stripe and sign up using the code BIRTHDAY, you can get 33% off of your first 3 months. So take advantage of that discount while you can. And if you'd like to follow Dan and see what he gets up to, then you can follow him on Twitter at KingBingo_ and see what he gets up to. So thanks very much for watching and take care.